This particular design calls for a paved area running through here around a fireplace and then towards the end, top left, and then down some steps. If I wanted to hatch that area, that paved area, I've not done so, or the designer's not done so. They've used a little small brick hatched area to indicate paving. But if I wanted a hatched area, I might want to run a polyline around the whole of that shape, and it's quite a complex shape. If I come over to the OSnap and pick OSnap settings, double click it, up pops the drafting settings. If I turn Object Snap on and I'll put Nearest on, I'll OK that. It is best to enclose an area that you want to hatch with a polyline. So if I draw a polyline, I can start, let me zoom in a little, I can start on the intersection or the end there. Remember, we've only turned on Nearest as an option, as a running OSnap. Means I can do a one-off, find the end. And then as I move away, you will see my drawing color is red, and I've deliberately set the line weight to be quite heavy. Can you see that I can move around and trace around the edge of this shape really quite easily? Whoops. Now I can right click and undo that whoops and then locate back on. So the combination of Object Snap and changing your color and line thickness helps when you're trying to trace over a complex area such as this. Well, the red line is now a closed polyline. If I select the polyline, you'll notice that although I said it was a closed polyline, there is no closed switch here. And if we look down an area, we can't see the area. To have gCADPlus calculate the area, you need to set that to be a closed polyline. And when that happens, the area 26.4 meter square is the area of paving that will need to be covered for that line, or by that line. We'd like to be able to get the offset to get the header course of the paving set in position by using the offset command. Let's try it. If we offset, we pick the entity to offset, and now the offset distance would be the distance away, which might be perpendicular. Let's try Nearest, and we can pick Nearest. That works, and that gives us our offset. You can see, unfortunately, because we came around on the inside of the fireplace area, our offsets are not how we want them. So let's erase, we'll exit from there and then erase the offset. What we need to do is to break the polyline at those 2 points and take our polyline around the corner. The simplest solution to clip off this piece of the red line, and we'll do a new one around there, would be to use the trim command. So hopefully we'll be able to use the polyline that's already there as a trim. Let's try it. Modify, trim. This I suspect may not work. There's an arc there. It may not meet the polyline, but let's try. Right click, and the object to cut off is this one, and clearly it doesn't trim. So what I might do is just pick the end there, and I'll just tweak it by bringing it a little bit out of whack, and I'll come over here and do the same thing. I'm taking the end of the polyline so that it just goes over, and now we should be able to trim. So modify, trim. This is the cutting edge, and we should be able to pick that one off, and it's now been removed. Now with our object snap back onto Nearest, we can start drawing our polyline again to go around this area. So draw polyline. I'd start by picking the end point of the red line I think we've got, yep, and now we can run around here in the same way that we did previously. It's not too far to go, so you can stay with me. I'm trying to keep these points relatively close together because you'll end up with a better shape if that's what if you do that. And now we want to go end of the red line. I'll position my cursor about there and enter. Now if we pick that, should be a separate polyline. This is a separate polyline, and indeed that one is. In theory we should be able to join them, and they should now be a single polyline, and they should be, if we close them, we'll be able to get the, oh, I've filled them, haven't I? That still gives you a good idea. So it's a closed polyline, so we've got an area there. Now our offset should work. We could measure a distance. Let's do that. Measure from nearest anywhere here, and then perpendicular to there, and the 220 is the 220.76, which is slightly off, so we'll offset 220. So modify, offset this polyline, right click, and we'll get the distance. 221 was when I was rehearsing this. What I'll do is just click there and change that to precisely 220, which I think is a more realistic figure, and we'll indicate the side to offset, which will be this side, and we're done. You notice that we got an imperfect clip in here, but we can actually should be able to edit that polyline when we cancel from there, pick the polyline and click that point there and bring it back to there, and that one looks okay. We may have another imperfection up here. Same applies. Pick that line there, come back and duplicate the point to that point, or move the point rather to that point. So we've done our offset to the header, and you might, at this point, you would probably set line weight back to by layer. So we now have two red lines delineating that area. This is going to become important when we move this model into SketchUp, because we now have a closed polyline surfaces for both of those, and we can give them an elevation if we need to. We'll do the same over this area here. It will have an elevation, and each rectangle that represents the steps down will give those an elevation, and that will make moving this design into the SketchUp environment quite simple.